In the previous video, we had looked at setting up jobs to replicate virtual machines. In this video, we will be looking at the processes for recovering replicated virtual machines. This is obviously a very powerful capability to be used in any data center. So we are back in our VMware vSphere web client, and we are looking at our headquarters site vCenter, which is 220. Incoming replication is coming from the branch 221, where the vCenter server is 221, and this virtual machine is being replicated. We already have 2 point-in-time sync points, and the last replication happened at that time, and the last sync size was 168 KB. When I click on the recovery tab, we have not run a recovery as yet. Now remember, on the branch, so let's look at the branch outgoing replications, and when I look at related objects and look at the status of the virtual machine, you can see the virtual machine is still up and running there. So right now we have a situation where at the source site the virtual machine is operational. Now in order to be able to recover, things will have to change. So let's go back to our recovery site, because this is where we are going to recover, and we go back to manage vSphere replication, monitor vSphere replication. We are verifying this is the incoming replication. Okay, now in order to recover this, so we are, again, just to be sure, we are at the vCenter 220, which is headquarters, which is the target site, and the virtual machine is still operational at the branch. Now let's try and do a recovery. Remember, the virtual machine is still available at the branch. It's still operational. When I click on start recovery, it's going to give me a message at the bottom. It says source virtual machine is currently powered on. This machine cannot be recovered with the most recent changes, as it might conflict with the source virtual machine. So to make sure that the virtual machine is powered off, or select the option to recover the virtual machine with the latest data that is available at the target site. So what this means is this, that if I say synchronize recent changes, then the recovery mechanism is going to go out to the source of the source site where the VM is, and then try and find the differences between what it has at its recovery site and what the latest data is on the VMDKs at the source site. But if the virtual machine is actually operational, then while the recovery mechanism is looking for changed blocks on the source site, there may be even more changes that might be coming in because the virtual machine is operational. So it is impossible to synchronize recent changes because you have two different mechanisms. One is the recovery mechanism, and the other is the virtual machine itself, which are making simultaneous changes to the VMDK. So there are conflicts and there is no synchronization possible. The other option is, if the virtual machine is up and running, is to use the latest available data. What this means is that it will not go across, or the replication mechanism will not go across to the source site. It will simply use the synchronized data that is available on the target site. So it will skip the data synchronization, and it will use the latest data, replication data, on the target site. This option is used if the source is not available, or the disks of the virtual machine are corrupted. Now in our case, nothing is corrupted, it's still up and running. So we don't really need to do this, because if that virtual machine that's operational decides to, or the replication mechanism decides that it needs to do another checkpoint, then there would be complications. So what I would like to do is to actually, we can use the latest available data, and I can just ignore what's happening on the other side. Usually one would not recover if the virtual machine is actually operational. So what I'm going to do is to cancel out of this, and at the branch site, go into related objects, get that virtual machine, and I will power it off. Then I will go back to the headquarters site, and I will go into monitor, and it will tell me that the replication is now not active. Now when I want to recover, I click that button, and it says validation succeeded, even when I have selected synchronize recent changes, because now there are no changes being made to the source VMDK because the machine is powered off. And now any changes made between the source and the target can be resolved. I can also use the latest available data, and that would work as well. Let's synchronize recent changes. Let's make this mechanism do some work. I will click next, Now we need to select a folder for the virtual machine at the target site. So we are going to put it in there. The virtual machine will be recovered in the selected folder and all folder permissions will apply. Now I could obviously have created a different folder called a recovery folder or something else like that. The key is the name of the virtual machine must be unique in that folder. I believe it will be. Now we have another option up here. What host are you going to use for the recovery? And the reason it asks is simply because the vCenter server 220 actually manages 2 hosts. So let's use host 201, and it succeeded. The virtual machine will be recovered in the selected host. Click next and we verify everything. Now one more thing to understand is that after the machine is actually recovered, the network devices will be disconnected because can't really be sure what the network connectivity is on the disaster recovery site or at the recovery site, right? So the machine will be recovered and we'll have to go in there and edit settings and hook up the various VNICs to the proper port groups on that server or that host, in our case host 201. And before it does that, it'll go back out from the target to the source site and it'll synchronize any changes and it'll power on the virtual machine after recovery. So sounds good. The protected site is 221, which is a branch. That's correct. The recovery site is 220, which is headquarters. That's correct. Recovery folder will be packed publishing, and the recovery host is 201, and I click finish and the process begins. If I monitor the tasks on that vCenter server at headquarters, you can see that the recovery process was moving on and then it was completed. So it cleaned up the replication files, deleted the virtual disks and it did its thing and then recovered the virtual machine. Now when I go back to my host or the headquarters vCenter, click on related objects and virtual machines, I see that that machine UB1404LTS packed pub 2 that was replicated is now actually powered on and is normal. All we have to do is to connect its VNICs to the proper port groups, and it will be available for all to use exactly like it was on the other side. Pretty phenomenal and very simple to use. Now the question to be asked before we move on is to think about what happens at the source site. So we have now recovered at a recovery site or a disaster recovery site. So it's up and running. We connect the VNICs appropriately and we'll be operational. Now the virtual machine actually does exist on the other side. Is there a failover possible? The answer is no, and an automatic rather a failback is not possible. So I cannot do that without setting up what would essentially be a reverse replication. So I can create another replication that takes this virtual machine that is now running at headquarters, and I can move this and I can replicate this virtual machine over at the branch site and then recover it at the branch site so that it will be then running at the branch site on the branch site host. Other way to do it would be to do a vMotion. This is across vCenters, but should be possible as well. That would be an interesting way to do it also. So we have seen how one can recover replicated VMs. Although we looked at only one of those options for recovery, which was we did not use one of the snapshots or the point in time. We actually went out to the VMDK on the other side, verified we had all the most current data, and then recovered this virtual machine at the disaster recovery site at headquarters. Since replication generates a lot of data traffic and network traffic, we are going to look at optimizing replication in the next video. I look forward to seeing you there.